Hello there, Frantz Kantor here, cartoonist, illustrator, and toon talker, and I'm here observing lockdown over in sunny Melbourne, and it is sunny today for once, which is good. I'm going to be doing another caricature, doing another drawing today, so let's get started into it. So this is my setup. This is me. And the subject today is an Australian radio and TV personality, Russel Howcroft. So I've just worked out from some reference material, some photographs online, just some shapes that I can play with. I kind of like this sort of, I guess it's a very simple, beautiful shape. It's like a kidney bean, and you often look for shapes that give you an entry point into drawing something complex, which is the face. And you know, the face is very complex. It's one of the most complex things that we could possibly draw, because there's a lot riding on it. We use our faces to express our thoughts and emotions all the time. And really, you know, the way that the head is constructed, it's basically, you could argue that, you know, the simplest shape of all would be like a circle or an egg shape. But with caricature, you're actually inviting some form of play, a sense of play. So just to sort of change the shape of things that you see. And you can do caricature as a good exercise to, you know, really draw anything at all. You can do caricatures of anything. Like, it doesn't have to be a human being, doesn't have to be a face. So let's talk. We'll talk more about the process of caricature in a sec. I just want to establish a few things. Like Russell's, he's a personality now. He's on 3AW, and he was in advertising, obviously, for years and years. And we share that common love, I think. I think advertising is a very pure form of communication. It's based on story, but we'll talk more about that. And of course, he's been on the Gruen transfer, which you know, he's knocked up a few shows on that, and it's been very good. So this is Russell, and we'll go through some of these pictures that I've found. These are all on the net. So a lot of these are publicity shots, and they're more sort of full frontal angles, which is good. But if we're drawing something tonally, something sort of three-dimensionally, we need a little bit of you know, three-dimensional properties, which is usually what they call a three-quarter view. I'll explain that later on. This is him on the Gruen transfer, of course. And I think I'm gonna work from probably from this photograph, but because his hand is on his cheek, obscuring it, we're going to use the information from another photograph. He's very energetic face, a very active face, so he communicates extremely well with his expressions. So there's a nice three-quarter view, of course, but he's not looking at the camera, so we need some more, you know, information from that. So yeah, we're just going to reconstruct his face. I like this expression, by the way, but it's giving us some information that we could sort of rely on and refer back to, rather than just working from the one photograph as reference. We're going to sort of try to get as much information in there as we can. Yeah, so there we go. All right, let's get started. So a little bit of a disclaimer here. This is a live video, so obviously anything can happen. One of them is the main thing that can happen is when you're doing a portrait or a caricature, of course, you may miss the mark and not get the likeness. So, but use it as an exercise in like studying all of the elements that go together in the construction of the face and the process itself. So I'll talk very closely about that as I go and the reasons why I'm doing things. All right, so as I said, I usually start out, I don't do live caricatures, but I usually start out with like an impression or a thumbnail based on an impression of looking at the subject. So this is the shape that I kind of like. I favor this. And the reason is because, most people that are very articulate, and he is very articulate, very intelligent personality, very intelligent man. And so you often see very high foreheads. In this case, it's extremely high. And I'm exaggerating that proportion. So that's one thing I'm going to do. The other thing that I want to mention, a couple of things very quick. In caricature or any form of likeness, you have to really look at this area of the head or of the face, right? So the relationship between all of these elements, the eyes, the nose, and the mouth, they form some form of a dialogue between each other. So referencing them constantly throughout the drawing process is going to be very valuable because even though you're changing proportions, they have to relatively refer to one another. There's a lot of gestures and lines and contours and things that are really important to keep in mind when you're drawing the face, because it's a referencing. It's like when you're driving on a map. If you think of the geography of the face, so Russell's face is a road map, and I'm not familiar with the vicinity. I'm not familiar with this suburb, with the Russel Howcroft suburb. I'm not familiar with it, so I have to find directions through contours and lines. And that's how I'm going to find my way home. That's how I'm going to create a reasonable likeness of Russell. That's my story anyway. That's why I like it. So this area here, which I call the sort of the mask zone, right? And mask not in like a Batman mask, but like, Mexican wrestler style mask. So the whole features of the face, the eyes, the nose, and the mouth. So those things that form this sort of T area, this T zone, okay, those are the elements we're going to focus a lot of attention on. And we're going to be employing caricature, which is simplification and exaggeration. So we're going to be using those elements, those methods, and we're going to be looking at repositioning, obviously, a lot of the information that we're seeing in a new way, in a new fashion. So we're moving the goalposts while the game is in motion. That's what's happening, and it can be scary to a lot of people, but it's quite a process in itself, and I think quite invigorating. I find it so anyway. The other thing we need to consider is because we're drawing on tone paper like this, we've got grey paper and we're going to be using brown pencil and a white pencil, and we've got a couple of white pencils and a black pencil and probably some markers, some paint markers, white and black. So it's essentially a drawing. It is a drawing, and it's a three-dimensional construct of a drawing. So it's a sculptural effect rather than a single drawing. So you're going to be using like 7 elements of art all in one, including space. We'll explain as we go along. All right, so the 7 elements of art is like line and shape and form and tone and texture, and I can't think of anything else. I think it's space is the final frontier. All right, the other thing we need to consider here is establishing some form of light. So if we look at the reference, we've got this nice photograph, and he's got like a backlight, so that's nice. But most of the lighting is coming in from this direction, I would say. So that's something that's going to tell us that if we're going to favor shadows, they're going to be on this left side of the face. So if you were to do just a shadow pass of this face, simplified version of it, it would be something like that. So that's the shadow area and the penumbra, and the umbra and the penumbra. So that's the method that we're going to use. These are things that it's not like a shopping list. So don't go through this thinking that first step is this. No, it is something you keep in mind, right? The other thing to reference or to keep in mind is the concept of perspective, which means that when you have a head that has an angle, a 3/4 view like that, anything that lines up horizontally, right, would reference a vanishing point on the horizon. And that is true of everything in space. So that's going to be a spatial cue. So we're not going to rule anything up, but just to think about that while you're drawing the eyes or the face at an angle is very helpful, because it keeps everything relatively truthful, okay, in terms of its referencing. All right, so I think I've got this fairly, it's not nestled very safely. Let's see if I can make it a bit better. Keep our reference. The other thing, try to keep the reference that you're working from quite close to the page that you're working from, that you're drawing on. Because the brain picks up information and travels with that information, bits of information, and plops it onto the page through your brain and your eyes, your brain, your pencil, your hand, whatever. The further away that reference is, the harder it is for that process to be achieved. So that's another little tip, little handy thing. I've actually done a rough pencil sketch of Russell just to work out some of the problems ahead of time. So basically, you've taken the thumbnail and I've sketched that up just by eye, made a few little changes here and there, but it's basically, that I think is pretty close to the thumbnail. There's a little bit more movement in the head, but that's fine. All right, so let's go in and narrow in, get some details happening here. So Russell's obviously from a background in advertising, and I've spent most of my life in advertising, illustration and storyboards, commercial storyboards for commercials and things like that. So I kind of like advertising. I think it's a form of communication. It's kind of a nice. I think you could arguably call it. I don't know if you'd call it that. You'd arguably call it a pure form of storytelling, of narrative. It's like you're trying to get people to. You're communicating an idea or feeling to people to behave favorably to a product or service. And that means it could generate sales or a heightened awareness of products. Of course, branding is an incredible force, and that is a thing that I definitely grew up with. Obviously, as a TV kid. Russell's a few years younger than I am, but I think he would have had the same experience growing up. I had a great interest in Saturday morning cartoons, and I would sit there with my Kellogg's OKs and with the Yogi Bear mask on the back and watch Yogi cartoons Saturday morning. and read my Marvel comics with the ads for the Saturday morning cartoon lineup. And even in Australia we had, I think, a very similar lineup to what was advertised in the American comics, which was good. So, you know, I have a very fond memory of my childhood's very... it's actually, I would say, cartoons and commercials, because I was a TV kid. But cartoons taught me how to, certainly how to draw, but how to, you know, speak. And comic books would have taught me how to read. So that's, you know, it's something that you grow up in an environment. I have very fond memories of my childhood, and you know, my parents were very supportive of my interest in art and cartoons, and you know, they would always buy me comics, and I would never be stopped from watching cartoons. It's, you know, like, go out and play. It's a sunny day, go out and play. Mom. So I wasn't much of an active kid in that sense. I did play, you know, but only when the cartoons are finished. It's got a lot of textures here. We're going to catch with any luck. Pencil is really good for catching hair, for replicating fur or hair. If you're drawing, I have to get rid of this. It's quite distracting, that line. So he's got a very high forehead here and very short cropped hair, but hopefully you'll be able to get the right mix of fuzz. So not too much fuzz. Alright, so it's got a nice Elmer Fudd thing happening, Mr. Sheen thing happening. I quite like that. It's very, very cool shape to draw this, because you know, it's like a revealing feature of these incredibly what would you call it? Expressive eyes. Yeah. So they're going to be really fun to draw. So we're just taking our time with this, you know. I've actually enjoyed this process more than anything else that I've done for a long time, this drawing process. There isn't much else I can do. You know, as you could probably appreciate, we're in sort of lockdown. This is we're in Melbourne, so you've got that stage 4 lockdown. I've had to move my whole setup back home, so I'm sitting in my lounge room now, and it will be like this for another 6 weeks, I guess. My wife's retreated, and I've advanced into new territory down here, into the lounge room. Might get some interruptions sooner or later with the dogs. They might decide to, you know, come downstairs and annoy me, but that's all right. It's all part of the experience, I guess. You know, you have to. It's not something being, I guess, you know, having a creative upbringing. It's not something you can't sort of sequester yourself into an attic and disappear like a monk. You're kind of involved with, you know, the family and other noises and things like that happen. It's part of the thing. So yeah. So the other thing to consider is when you line up elements of the face, because his head is tilted, right? You've got anything that registers as a horizontal is also at an angle. So you must always make sure that you line up those elements, right? As I said to you before, we're thinking also about perspective, because the face, the head is in at an angle. So it's rotated, it's tilted and rotated at the same time. So not only, if I'll draw the center line down here, so it's tilted and it's rotated. Oh, that's bad. So I'll do this. This is the center line based on the surface of the nose, position of the nose. That's better. So it's tilted and rotated at the same time. So if you were to exaggerate perspective on, say, eye shapes, it would be like that. So the one that's close, obviously, further away from us would be affected by perspective. Okay, so these are things, as I said, it's not a shopping list. You just go through it step by step, not step by step, but in the process. So in the process itself, I'm going to actually, I should check those before I go any further. I just want to check some of those lines in the head. Okay. He does have a lace work of conflicting lines in. I have to repair that. See, this line here, this crease here, right, is broken, and normally in a face there's a certain amount of symmetry, so there should be a crease coming up there, which is the same as that, but in this case it's not. It's broken by this middle crease. So that's what's happening there. All right, so let's press on with all possible dispatch. Where's that photograph again? So here we go. Okay, so in the reference, the lines are not there, but I need to have some kind of a roadmap. So I need to draw the little dunny lanes, of the things, so you can know where everything is. So all of the little back roads and the creeks and things around the major landforms, the landmarks, the eyes, the nose, and the mouth, of course, and all of these things are part of the landscape of the geography of the face. How's that? That's a mouthful for sure. So it's a geography lesson. We're doing geography today. Geography 101. Russel Howcroft. The man, the landscape. We're doing map reading. So that's kind of nice. It's got a nice. It's going to take us a while to get a lot of this fuzz, a lot of this hair, and I'm going to come to it with a white pencil too, so we can get some contrasts in there. So I'm basically creating all of the elements that I'm going to be putting together in this caricature. Fortunately, the photographs are a little bit blurry, so I have to make up a lot of the information. Anyway, yeah, getting back to it, with the situation we find ourselves in, it's it's good to keep. Obviously, you got to keep busy. Keep up the spirits, I guess. So a lot of the things that we find, a lot of the features you find in a face are exaggerated in caricature. So we exaggerate proportions, we exaggerate the size. Some elements, like the ears or the nose or the head or the forehead or something, we make bigger. Other elements we make smaller, and that gives us a bit of variety and a bit more of a challenge to work to. Makes it more fun then. So a lot of people find caricatures funny because it's very novel to see these features in a new setting. And it's a kind of cool. So I'm looking at putting in details as well as the main source, the main structures and things like that. I'm looking at putting in details that are referencing the obviously the photograph. So this photograph that I'm working from is quite good. There's a few things that are missing from that in information-wise. So make a few adjustments here and there. It's good. It's quite safe. Grey paper, you know, tonally the brown is closer to the grey paper than, say, the white pencil or the black pencil. So it's kind of a nice sculptural. It's a slow build-up of form, which we're in. I think I'm finding enjoyable. I don't know about you. But while I'm drawing, it'd be nice if you guys were drawing as well, you know, even just doodling on paper and just try to think about the process of drawing as you go, you know. We tend to overload our senses a little bit with art and sort of give up too easily, I think. You know, make sort of judgments that you know, people keep telling me I can't draw to save my life. Well, the fact is, the chances of drawing saving someone's life is not it's not a usual thing, so that's not going to happen. But the fact is that we all draw. Every human being draws. It's a human experience. When we're children, it's the first thing we do. Children don't even have to be shown. They just instinctively, you know, pick up a crayon and, you know, off they go. You can't stop them. And it's got some very complex lines around his face. This is these creases around the face are created from expressions and obviously usage. So the more times you use a muscle, the muscle gets more pronounced, right? So these are muscles that are all around the skull, all over the skull. So if we get this little thing here, I'll explain. Now you can see this is quite a complex arrangement of muscles and sinews and tissue, right? And two major things here is the muscles around the mouth, the muscles around the eyes, which are designed to, you know, contract and expand to let food in or to let light in or something. They're also quite expressive, much more expressive than any animal. So comparatively, anatomically, you can compare all of these elements to like a chimpanzee's face, for example, or a dog's face or a cat's face. They're all there in some form, whether they're smaller or bigger, it doesn't matter. But you never see a chimpanzee raise its eyebrows. So that's kind of a very telling element. We use our faces to communicate. Just have a look at him next to Russell's face. We use these elements, these muscles on our face, on our skull, to communicate very, very well. And no animal can do that. That's way beyond the physical properties of the muscles. So these are very, very intricate and communicative elements. All right, so let's press on. Here we go. Now we've established some guidelines here for some of these shapes, of course. We're going to get in there with a darker pencil, black pencil, to try to establish them much much darker, much stronger. And but before we do that, we just sort of get these shapes. There's a certain amount of symmetry here, even though the face is rotated, the head's rotated. So you've got to keep those things in mind when you're drawing, you know, and not rush at the process unnecessarily, because, you know, mistakes tend to compound on one another. I mean, really, it's a learning experience, so you just shouldn't be too hard on yourself for you know, this just project, this experimentation, really. It's very interesting muscles. We'll talk more about some of these elements in a bit when we start to articulate them a little bit better. We can sort of see them better with the black pencil and the white pencil and things. So comparing left and right, you know, eyes, try to keep the ball on the eye on the ball, right? So make sure that the perspective is happening and you're not drifting away, because, you know, especially when you rotate when you tilt things that the brain says should be straight. The brain has a tendency to overcompensate and repair the damage that it sees in the tilting of horizontal reference points. And so that happens while you're drawing. So what usually happens, and it has happened in the past, including to, you know, fine artists, like if you look at Botticelli's Venus, of course, Botticelli's Venus has, her face is beautifully tilted, but there is a certain horizontaling thing happening to her eyes. So there is a weird thing happening, and that's because the brain is trying to re-establish, you know, the perpendicular, the straight, the horizontal, and it's forcing slowly in the drawing process or in the painting process this thing's happening. That happens to a lot of artists. Just be aware that is the forces at work, you know, your brain. If it happens to Botticelli, it can happen to anybody, you know. So we don't like saying, Botticelli made a mistake. Well, yeah, he did, but it's a human mistake because he has a brain, and the brain tends to do these things. So we have to be aware of that in the process and not you know, try not to allow it to happen. It might happen. Don't freak out if it does. It's human. It's part of our experience. To make mistakes, you must make mistakes. Mistakes are beautiful. They're very, very valuable. If man never made mistakes, we wouldn't be able to do anything, because everything would be perfect. There wouldn't be you know, something to repair, something to fix, something to work on. We need mistakes to move forward. It's very important for us. As human beings, we love challenges, and, you know, look at these muscles here. He has such a muscular face. So he's got a lot of folds here. Hope we don't run out of white pencil, by the way. There's a lot of whiskers coming off down here, and maybe I should have picked a clean-shaven version, maybe. But it's going to be fun. It'll be fun, you know. So I love watching Russell on the Gruen transfer and things, because I think he has a very good understanding of, you know, I mean, he bounces off against Todd, obviously. but he has a very good understanding of the communication power of advertising in all of its permutations, and the history of it, and the power of it, and it's just a very beautiful, pure way of communicating, I think. And I've always loved it. My interest in advertising grew out of watching Darren Stevens do the flip charts in, to Larry Tate in Bewitched. I loved that. And my only interest in newspaper cartoons and illustration was obviously Superman, and mainly Peter Parker working for the Daily Bugle. That's that was a big thing for me. So the only reason why I joined a great metropolitan newspaper was because of that. Not really interested in news. I don't read the newspaper, except to look at cartoons or do crosswords or something like that. I really don't care about the news. I don't follow politics much. I'm not really interested. I'm sure they'll sort things out one way or another. Otherwise, you don't vote for them. Don't make the same mistake twice. So we're going through a very interesting period of time at the moment, and a lot of people find it incredibly challenging. So as I said, this is the lounge room. That's the noises you hear. Got nothing to do about that. Nothing I can do about. There's dog paws, dog noises. It's a Saturday here, so probably not going to get a mailman knocking at the door. Might get lucky. Maybe there's something for me from eBay. Suits are great, symbols of authority, masculinity, I think, of for people of business. The business suit, just the cut, the sort of geometrical shapes, they're really great. So I look for things that variety, right? So round shapes, sharp shapes, blunt shapes, all of these different elements to try to keep up a sense of variety, which I find really good, really interesting. This is, if you have to draw the same thing over and over again, that's terrible. It's one of the reasons why I left the paper was eventually was because I got tired of drawing politicians. Just the same faces over and over again. I kept thinking, what's the point of it all? What's the point of it all? Where are they, where is it going to end? Where is it going to get us? So it's almost like, I envied people like Bill Leak or someone who could come up with a simpler form of caricature, like a cartoon, and then and just draw that every day, and it's it sort of codified it and the symbolizes in your visual part of your visual vocabulary. Very expressive eyes. Let's try to get into the eyes now. We've established a lot of the elements and the form and things. So what we're going to try to do is now kick up some of the contrast. So we're going to be using white and black pencil to enhance a lot of the contrasts that we've been intimating with the dark tones of the brown pencil. So you must be very careful. Don't sort of when you do things, when you draw faces, when you draw anything really, just think about the pen or the pencil that you're working with. Is it appropriate to outline things? So outlining irises, for example, or eyes indeed, but outlining things that might be subtler than your drawing. So there could be some people's eyes are very, very bright, very light in color. That means the edge between the sclera or the white of the eye and the iris is not as defined as, say, someone with dark eyes, with brown eyes. So what I'm saying is, I think temper it. Just think about it while you're working, because when you make decisions about whether something, I'll just make this darker or something, you're actually saying quite a lot about quite a few things like contrasts, lighting, shading, the relevance, the differences between surfaces, right? So surfaces may be, unnamed surfaces. If you sort of name them, well, this is the eye, therefore there's an outline. This is the iris, therefore there is an outline. And that is an oversimplification of what you're drawing, because really things only have edges or surfaces according to certain parameters, and one of them is light, one of them is tone. So if something is similar in tone, then the edge is not as pronounced. So just because it says there's the iris and then there's the white of the eye, don't immediately assume that they need a delineation in that way. They could be very similar in tone. And of course, as I keep reminding people, the white of the eye isn't white. It's very rarely white unless there's a very bright light shining on it. It's like porcelain, so it's incredibly reflective, and that means that you have to show those reflections in order to make it look fairly realistic. And that also means that you got to be careful how much light you put in there. Let's try to get some little bit of lighter accents in the white of the eye as we go. Kind of like there's a light coming in from this side of the face too. I don't want to forget that while I'm thinking about it. So we use light to show, the effects of light shows form and texture, the shininess of certain surfaces, Okay, so we're going to help that with, I'm going to catch these highlights now, see if I can do that. I've got this paint marker, which is quite, should be quite nice to do the fur with around the face. We're also going to try to get this reflection, and we're going to match it over on the other side, of course, because it's the same light source. Yeah, that'll do for now. Right, so press on. So I'm starting around here, this the face, and with the T-zone, of course, the eyes, the nose, and the mouth. That's where our concentration has to be. Keep an eye on the intricate patterns and lines wrinkles and folds and things around these elements, these features, because they're distinctive to each and every one of us. They're very distinctive. They're like thumbprints or fingerprints. Everybody has thumbs and fingers, but the prints are distinctive. So that's what's going on here with these forms around the landforms. There's all these little streets and rivers and creeks and things that are around it. Oh, okay, that's what we should do. That joins up with there. So I'm just talking to myself. You don't mind that? I'm just referencing a lot of these features have a certain rhythm, and they sometimes join up with one another to form, relevant shapes and lines and things. So the best way to describe this is I'll just draw it over. So you've got these lines that start possibly in the eyebrow, they go around the eye, then they kind of jump a little bit, but they basically end up around the muscles around the cheeks and the mouth and the nose. And these are sort of like a rhythmic, sinuous dance. And rhythm is obviously a musical term. It also applies to physical properties. Dances have a rhythm, and that's just like the pacing of shapes through space. I love drawing these tiny folds, tiny wrinkles and things. They're really interesting. They have a general form because they're created by larger muscles, which are common to all faces. But the stresses and strains and the intricate patterns are created individually by thoughts and feelings that play over the face. So this is another thing that really doesn't happen with animals. Animals don't develop laugh lines or worry wrinkles, worry lines, or all of these things. Everybody has lines in their forehead and lines around their eyes. General structure of forms around over the skull. All the muscles and pulleys are there, but the forces are different. The stresses and strains are different. So I've got Russell sitting here in this little box. You might be wondering, well, why is he sitting there in a little box? Why isn't he just sitting on the page? The reason is I'm going to use the box to create a sense of composition, and that's sort of my way of creating a negative space, which is negative and positive space sort of structurally balance each other. Like the yin and yang symbol, you've got an equal amount of positive of black space and white space, and they balance each other out. So that's the concept of using this element. A lot of artists have used that. Bruce Trizan used to do that. He did all the big movie posters and things, and Norman Rockwell used to use circles. So those are simple shapes, triangles and circles and stars and whatever. They're a way of anchoring the object in a spatial relationship to the extent of the page. So everything is sort of stuck, in frozen in space, and it gives it a sort of a nice, tension, but also a sense of balance and purpose, which is composition. Composition is creating a dialogue for the brain and the eyes to follow. It's like punctuation. It's like, yeah, punctuation. It's, or how we read in patterns, linear patterns and things like that. So it's the same principle at play here. It's a sort of a relevance that makes looking at these images easier for us, and therefore probably more pleasant. So it's a kind of a stripped down. If you strip that concept down, you get the basis of graphic design, which is communicating in a very pure fashion without extraneous details. So it's a modern construct, graphic design, but it's very useful. It comes from fine art, comes from painting, and everything we do today has a cumulative build-up of knowledge and feelings and thoughts and stuff, and graphic design is one of those things that have come to us. He's got a lot of we're going to catch this. We're going to try to get a rim light happening over on this side of the head, but some very interesting. It's going to keep us busy, I think, putting stubble in here, but I think it's a valuable exercise. There's a lot, isn't there? But they all have direction, so you can't just sort of randomly color things and shade things, and you have to think about the texture, you have to think about the direction, the surface properties, and how it affects the direction of these lines. So it's easy enough to say, well, I'm drawing hairs, because the pencil lines kind of approximate hairs. That's good, that's handy. It can work for hair or fur or whatever, but everything has a direction, and you'll find this very, very true for, say, a lot of fur. So, I draw dogs quite a lot, and I find this is a very interesting, they have very interesting properties, but the direction of the fur indicates the direction of your pencil strokes. So you have to move the pencil around, in different directions. So it's not just writing. You hold a pencil like you would write a signature, like you would write by hand, something, a poem or whatever. But you have to be really flexible with it, Thankfully, we have this incredible machine, which is the arm. So the whole arm, from the hand from the fingers to the shoulder, is the most advanced machine that's ever existed. Everything else man has ever made pales to insignificance to the machine of the arm, the human arm, not the monkey arm, the human arm. Monkey arms are very good. They can peel bananas or open jars or hold cigarettes or do all of things that look like us, but they don't. They're not like us. They're very different things. So animals we tend to I have a theory on this, right? Just bear with me for a sec. I have this theory that we love animals. I absolutely love animals, and I think it's because we anthropomorphize them. We often talk about dogs and cats having personalities that are comparable to human personalities. Oh, he looks so happy. Well, he is, but he's probably not the same happy that a human person would be. So the emotions are probably not as exactly the same definitions, perhaps. I know a lot of the things, we attribute, I think, to animals because of our interest in the properties of humans. and we kind of project those on other animals. And sometimes the animals, I think, they get sort of used to that, and they kind of they dig it. I saw a video of a lady training. I don't know any other word other than that to use for it. A bumblebee, a queen bee that was rejected by her hive or something because she didn't have wings or something like that. And it lived well past its normal lifespan, obviously, because it's a pet, not in the wild. Animals don't live very long in the wild. They enjoy long lives in zoos, and more especially, I think, as pets. But they tend to rely on us. Anyway, this bee was fully enjoying the relationship. It would go to sleep on her hand or whatever, and her shoulder. So, and she fed it, lived a long life. So I mean, you'd think that, okay, well, why wouldn't it? But then you got to think, well, hang on, this is an insect here we're talking about. What do you mean, why wouldn't it? Why would it? How does it have that ability, that to think of, I don't know, that enjoy that relationship? Is it enjoying that relationship? Are we projecting our feelings onto it? We don't know. It's mystery. So, yeah. I also love cartoon mascots in advertising. Tony the Tiger, big one. Louis the Fly, of course, Australia. Australia has a long association of cartoons as in advertising. Sport as well, that's the Rabbitohs, tigers, magpies, crows, whatever. All animals that have beautiful possibilities for communication of, a team's spirit and a team's abilities or possibilities, whatever. Okay, so I'm going to refer back to another photograph to try to get a handle on some of these shadows, because there is a lot happening and I'm referring to a bunch of photographs of Russell. So I need to establish a few handy rules, I guess, structure rules of relevance of what's light and dark and what's appropriate texture and things. So he's got a lot of muscle around this mouth. Now, usually people have these sort of cheek muscles which come around from the nose, around the mouth, and they form a unifying shape. They join up. However, with Russell, they're again broken, so it's like the same thing happening in the folds of the forehead. There is a sort of a subtle breaking of these lines. So, it's just a testament to the usage and the flexibility of his face. He's used his face all his life to communicate, and you can tell that. And there is definite evidence that there's been a lot of activity, a lot of thought, a lot of concentration, certain amount of I think control in the lines here, but overall, quite very a great communicator. You could tell from that, communicates beautifully which you'd expect somebody in media to have those sort of propensities and physical attributes showing up in the face to some degree. It's like when you draw actors, you suddenly realize how expressive their faces are. It's the same thing, with communicators, people that are in media. And businessmen are really good communicators. They have to be. Business is all about it's a balancing act of multiple disciplines, but one of them is communication. And without good communication, nothing gets done. Nothing. It's got a great I like this mouth here. He's got a good mouth. It's disappearing under the muscle of the muscle of the nose, under the structure of the nose. And you'll notice also I've simplified the nose shape somewhat. And also, what else have I done? I've created, this darker, thicker outline. Simply because a lot of things that you look at creating a thick and thin response with some outlines. You don't outline everything, but some things you do to try to build up a bit of contrast between the shapes and the foreground and the background and things like that. So it's all part of the dialogue, and the pencil tells a story, of the process itself. So it's like a pencil story in a way. So, everybody has a different face, and everyone has a different, all caricaturists and artists, illustrators, they have a different experience. So I'm drawing Russell, but I'm actually drawing me. So I'm part of this equation here, and inextricably linked to this subject. And because I'm not a camera, I'm not a filter, I'm human. So I'm responding differently to filters and lenses and film and things like that. They're fine, but I think nothing really replaces this exercise of I'm learning so much about light and form and faces and Russell, and as I go. So it's all part of the experience, the magic of this experience, which I think you'll find interesting. It's a challenge, isn't it, drawing? And a lot of us sort of we say, well, we don't have time. I don't have time to draw. Growing up, I had my father was a carpenter. He was a builder, and he would always draw cupboards and things that he would build with his hands, and and clients would marvel at well, I don't know what this room will look like with an archway, and my father would draw it, and they would sit there and he would get the job because he could just draw it up straight away. And and I remember many times going with him after school or something, because I never really went to school. I spent time with my mum. I didn't like school. So I just hang out with my dad or my mum, and it was great. And when he wasn't drawing cupboards and things, he'd often, in his workbook, which was all like lines, for prices and things, so he'd be drawing quotes. He'd be writing quotes and drawing the thing that he has to build from his imagination on paper, and they would be absolutely hypnotized. I can remember these people, these ladies, hypnotized by this magic that was happening on just humble paper, a pencil and paper, It was communicating. It was telling stories of things yet to be, and that's it, isn't it? It's like you can do that with this. You can't do that with a pencil, with a camera. You can't tell stories of things yet to be. Doesn't work. So, you kind of creating a story that's never been told before with a pencil story. Look at the direction of this fur, this hair. Can't call it fur, it's a bit insulting. The hair, the little tiny hairs, has like individual direction over the forms. Hair has a patterning and has a certain textural quality, which is great, and the pencil accommodates that quite well, I think. I love drawing hair and fur because with a pencil, because it has a certain, it just looks legit. Let's face it, it's great. It's good fun. So good on you. The other thing, expression is quite a it's quite a complex situation, So I'm going to get in there and refine some of the details a little bit. You'll start to see some of the forms, individualized, some of the little elements of the features of the face come into being. I'm just doing a little ribbon effect here, which I kind of like to do. Keep the name. I like to put the name underneath, but I've learnt that I need to structure it somewhat to make it look better. Yeah. No rulers. No rulers. So this is all right. We're cooking now. Let's see what I can do. Get some black marker and just help out some of the darker spots. Just here and there to help it out, create a stronger effect. Maybe it's got a nice strong shadow here. Yeah, that'll do. That's good. I don't want to outline the whole of the nose, but just a little bit help out this curve. So the roundness of it, and then there's the gap in the mouth. Some darker accents here and there. So let's help out this eyelash line a little bit, even though I can't see I can't really tell very much from the photograph because it is blurry, but I've drawn enough eyelashes to know that it has to be there, featured somehow. Some lovely intricate lace work going on with some of the lines here. We just they're formed by expressions, and expressions come from thoughts and feelings. So there's been a lot of activity, a lot of thinking, and a lot of feeling. I think he has a great deal of compassion, and you can tell that from from this this expression. I think I've chosen a nice sort of expression as well, I think. All right, so we've got brown, we've got black, and we're going to get in here. This is a very soft pencil. So this is a polychromo, which is a hard pencil. They're all quite expensive. All color pencils like this you can buy individually. You don't have to buy sets. But you can buy Derwents, which are very nice pencils, English pencils. This is polychromo. This is a Prismacolor, which is kind of a traditional illustrator's tool choice, I think, Prismacolors, mainly because they're soft enough to be able to put pencil over pencil. So it works quite strikingly on grey paper, as you can probably see it come out now. You know, there's a lot of I have to try to, I'm working at a slight, I'm not over the top of this, I'm working at a slight disadvantage from an angle. It's a little bit further away than I would have liked, but can't do much about that at the moment because of the camera, you know, and you don't want to see the top of my head in the way. So now I'm building relevant textures. So I'm looking at areas to accommodate with shine, you know, like we have shiny bits, different shiny areas on our skin, and that's very important to recognize and to reference in the drawing. And guess what? The white does that beautifully. So I'm not using this to color in, and I would charge you, you know, if you use a white pencil, don't use it to color in, just use it to sculpt areas, individual areas of things, but reference light constantly. Like, think about the properties of the skin, how reflective it is comparatively to other areas of the skin, and the light direction, of course. Remember the light direction, as I said to you before. We're actually looking at a light direction coming in here. So shadows, if they're forming, would be down on the bottom left-hand side. All right. Now, apart from that, there, of course, there's things like reflected lights and bounce lights and lights that illuminate the contour. They call them rim lights in photography, I think. So that just gives more dimension to the properties of the form. Remember the simple form that we're using here as a construct, this vein form, this kidney shape. So, you know, that's important. How do you light a kidney? If you ever want to know how to light something complex, draw something similar in shape but simple and light that. If you wanted to light a face, light an egg. If you can light an egg, you can light a face. Apart from the eyes, of course, then you need some, you know, reflections happening in there, because that's a glassy object that needs its own light source, probably. It's got a lovely face. I love this face. Yeah, it's good. You got a nice face. Your caricatures, the process of doing caricatures for me, of course, is they're like I'm getting information like I would do in a portrait, putting details and things in there. But I've changed, obviously, the proportions of things. But that's really just to have fun with the process. You know, this is not a quick. I'm not doing this to be quick. I'm doing this to have fun. I'm doing this for me. This is for me. So drawing is not a democracy. Drawing is definitely your own, based on your own desires and needs and things. Sort of, we'll talk about that another time. I guess I don't want to go into the politics of drawing, but it's a very interesting process for me. I just come to my conclusion after all these years of doing this that there is there's something really cool about it, like a superpower, like a magical properties of this, and you can, when you think about it, it sort of makes the experience more interesting, more fun. So I'm drawing the folds here, which are catching some of the light, but they're also keep it in. I'm not coloring in. I'm just referencing looking at the reference material, the photograph, and just putting in the appropriate amount of shine and texture to, just to help this create a sense of believability. So it's like, if you're drawing the maps of a landscape, you're putting in a lot of these little details and things which say, oh, that looks real, that looks like an aerial photograph of this area, this country, the Russell, the United States of Russell. And so he's a great country. What the flag would be? Louis the Fly. There you go. You would have Louis the Fly. So textures, forms that have them kind of pop out of the grey paper. It's nice. It's interesting. And this is what kind of line I'm using here. I'm not sort of scribbling. I'm trying to keep it some form of hatching, like these parallel lines. If I change colour, explain to you a little bit. So it's kind of like this, right? Rather than this. Okay? So this is a much more relaxed and open form of establishing form, building up form. It's good stuff. Like it very much. Yeah. Bit of cross-hatching. That's all right. So again, not filling out the whole of the form here. I'm just catching some of the elements that are, I'm referencing some of the light spots, reflective areas on the head, and which I can see in the photograph. Elements of shiny areas here and there. And it's just sort of rendering it off, giving it some form, but I don't want to color over the whole thing. This is good. I like this. Okay, here we go. Good fun. Okay, here we go. So you can have like a nice controlled way of establishing light and shade, and the white will give you more sparkle, more intensity, contrasts here and there. That's what it's good for. You build up a bit of form. Okay, now I'm getting into the beard zone. So this is where I think we'll leave the pencil for a while probably and pick up the pen and draw with a white pen, which will have a better effect, I think, than the pencil. I just want to lighten this area of the shirt. I'm going to leave the jacket as is, au naturel, in that grey. I think that's kind of nice. Let's also get in some. Okay, we'll do some. We'll use another Posca marker. This time we'll use a brush. Hopefully. Otherwise we go back to the point of the pen. But this has got a nice effect in it. I think it has the ability to be thick and thin, and without having to swap pens. So these highlights here reference zones of. I mean, they're still reflecting the light, but it's like you're saying, well, this is a shiny area, this is shiny area, and this is a matte area, etc. So it's a constant series of referencing texture and form. This is really nice because it doesn't mix that well with the pencil. It's quite opaque. That was nice, isn't it? That's like could put some shine there, which is more like the photo, like the reference. Kind of like this little spikes. It just feels right. It's good. Let's go down here. Make this highlight stronger. So I'm actually making. I might. What if I did a line around this part of the nose? Maybe be careful. Let's try to blend that off a bit, maybe. Yeah, that'll do. Don't go berserk. Some areas of wetness in the mouth, they're like porcelain again, very reflective, but tempered with. Obviously, you don't want to make them white because they stand out too much. They won't be relevant then. Won't feel like teeth. They would look like glowing lights. This is good fun. Look at this. And we've got some beautiful white whiskers here, which is going to articulate this area of the jaw and the cheeks. It's a Captain Peach Fuzz. Some nice. It's picking up. There's a nice sort of halo effect happening with the beard around the contour of the jaw of the cheek. It's a very cool, dramatic, I think, effect. I really like that. Might do a little bit over here, perhaps. That looks good. I like that. Feels right. Let's try to do something over here that makes sense too. And he's got there's a light coming in from the left-hand side, which looks like a lamp in the lighting room, the lighting of the shot. But so the same, I think, situation on the left-hand side as the right-hand side. You've got these grey hairs coming in to the beard. This is giving more definition to
to the beard itself. That's kind of nice. Well, I would, I was kind of thinking, oh no, there's a lot of hairs there to paint, to draw. And I was thinking initially, oh my God, what have I let myself into? But it's been fun. It's like I'm enjoying this. Of course, I'm paying attention to the direction of the hair, so that's an important thing to do. That's good. I like that very much. Thank you. So, what to do with this collar? So I think, I won't colour the jacket because I think that's distracting. I might just establish something with the background. I'm thinking maybe black. I'll put a black background in there. Would be kind of nice. Let's see what I can use. Got a black pen. It's not pen. It's a white pen. Why would I put that on? There's a black pen. There's a nice chunky one. Look at that big thick one. We're going to use that, and we're going to cut in with a slightly smaller version. If I can find it somewhere. No, that's not it. Excuse me while I rummage. Got one. Huzzah! How's that? That's a really good one. So Poscas are really good. I'll tell you why. Because, when I was in the papers, working for the newspapers, the Herald and then eventually the Australian, I used to do these illustrations similar to this, so, with a black sky around it and black sort of window. And I would be using Indian ink, and Indian ink, of course, you have to apply with a brush and a pen, sort of cut in. And it's kind of, it's a paint, it's a very wet, watery paint. And it's kind of nice, but my God, it pools. When it pools, it creates this metallic, shiny spot, which is not a problem for the cameras because they have the way that they light the artwork for the newspapers. They can fix that problem, but my God, it just used to drive me up the wall. This pooling of ink in areas that create this little, and sometimes to even be even more annoying, not just glossy, but metallic. So it would have some kind of a patina as well. So it was doubly annoying. It was, oh my God, I couldn't get around it. And I tried different things. I tried using black gouache and things like that. But it was never as easy as putting in ink. And back in those days, of course, you can use markers, but they go right through the paper, which is awful. And they also go really patchy, very patchy. They're very, they dry out and things like that, and they go very streaky. You can see the streaks. So I never had a good experience with Indian ink, and I always found it very unpredictable. I've got hundreds of illustrations in my files, all of the originals, and there's still, some of them still have that annoying metallic shine in a spot, So when these came out, I only started using these for a couple of years or a year. I was really impressed because they're flat, they dry flat, which there are a few paint markers on the market. One of them is a Uniball, which I have here too, and I've used that for these drawings, but they're glossy. It's glossy, and you don't want it glossy. A few reasons, but the main thing is it doesn't look right. It just sucks. So you need quality, and you need fidelity, and you need all of these things in the materials. And unfortunately, that costs money, because that's the payoff for materials. If you ever used say color pencils, when you're a kid, you go to McDonald's, right? Try to do the placemat to do the coloring in with the pencils they supply you. Try your best. You'll never get it. It won't work. That's a Uniball. Actually, we need the Posca. That's the Uni marker. Chalk, Uni chalk. We need the Posca. There's the Posca. Nice. Let's get it. There you go. So nice and flat. Look at that. And the beautiful part about this is, like ink, Indian ink, it will not go through the paper, which is fantastic. It's just a paint. It just sits on there. You can do anything with it. It's an acrylic marker, so I'm sure graffiti artists do their tagging with things like this. It's probably better because I think you can wash these off easier. Which makes it only fair for us all. In the end, I don't mind murals and picture graffiti, but I really dislike tagging. I think it's just stupid, tribal, posturing. So some nice contrasting tones in here, even though his face is quite well lit. There's some nice things happening. I quite like this. I must admit, he's a very she's got some freckles happening up here, so I don't think he'd mind me putting them in. Let's try to give him a little bit of texture here and there that I'm seeing in there. Skin has properties that this is not a max factor ad, so they have properties. Oh, be careful. Skin has properties that give it qualities, textural qualities that make it look like living flesh rather than a mannequin. It's good. Well, that's nice. So it's a warm tone, right? So that's the premise. That's the concept of using, brown pencil. And it's the same process that our ancestors used on cave walls in Europe. So these are natural colors, natural materials, but they're quite profound. In fact, Da Vinci used he did a pen and ink a lot too, but he used they call it the three crayon method: the brown, Conti crayon, the chalk, and the charcoal. And of course, the neoclassicists like Jean-Dominique Ingres was a big fan of this as well. So let's come down with some bona fides. There you go, some bona fides of why we should do it. That's quite nice, I think. This is very interesting. I love this face. He's got a very expressive and communicative punum. This is a man who communicates beautifully, and we'll finish it off now. We'll name him, put his little name in there, and then that'll be it. only got one L, of course. So, and WCR. I have to spell it out, otherwise, I'm not bad with English. I'm not bad with spelling, but doing two things at once is kind of it blocks my spelling ability, I guess. All right, this is Frantz Kantor. This is Russel Howcroft. This is Russel Howcroft. Let's go for the before. There's the before. Oh, look at the after. There's the after. And this is Russel Howcroft. And you can listen to Russell on 3AW. And, on Twitter, you can read his thoughts or whatever. And, of course, enjoy his take on advertising and advertising communication on the Gruen transfer. So this is Frantz Kantor, and I will catch you on the flip side. Bye-bye.